Aloha, folks, and welcome to this edition of Five Questions. It is a segment that focuses on leaders in our community with literally 5 questions that appears here on the Rick Hamada program on KHVH Radio and, of course, on the homepage of HawaiiReporter.com. Be sure to log on daily. Our very special guest is Senator Sam Slom. He, of course, the Senate Minority Leader in the House, in the state legislature, rather, and a longtime friend, and he is on board with us for this edition. Sammy, how are you?
I'm just great, Rick. Looking forward to it. Thank you for including me.
Well, you know what? None better to talk to when we're in the middle, at the beginning, rather, of a legislative session. We're underway. Sam, if there was a headline at the end of 60 working days of this session, what headline would you like to see, and what story would be top of mind for you?
Legislature takes action to roll back taxes and spending and improves Hawaii's business climate.
Now, that said, are we on a path from what you've seen thus far that we would actually achieve that?
Absolutely not.
All right.
And part of the problem is that my colleagues, whom I love dearly, the vast majority of them have never met a private payroll in their lives. They don't have business knowledge. They're more of the community activist type. And when we have business bills down here at the Capitol and we invite business people to come and testify, they testify. They tell us exactly what we need to do to help business, to help them help the community by creating new jobs and all that. And after they're all finished, we say, thank you very much, and then we go about business as usual. And that's the sad part. And I don't see that changing very much in this, a major election year.
You know, the economic reality of our state we've talked about with other lawmakers. So, Sam, I'd like to get your take with question number 2. Can you paint the economic picture for our state, please?
Sure, and it's not a pretty picture, Rick. We've heard people continually talk about we've turned the corner, we've turned the corner. I think if we've turned the corner, it's into a dark alley where there's even more problems. Look, there are some businesses and industries doing quite well, and we applaud them because you and I always applaud success. We want to see more success and prosperity. The visitor industry is coming off a near-record year, and that's great. They're carrying the load, but we still have people in this community that say, we don't want to be dependent on tourism. We don't want visitors. We don't want this. We don't want that. Well, we don't have too many options because we are not a well-diversified business climate or economy. But I can tell you, for most people that I deal with and talk to on a daily basis, they're really having a struggle. And part of the struggle is that while their bottom line may go up 0.5%, if they're lucky, the built-in costs, the cost of taxes, of employer mandates, things that they must provide, of basic utilities, the cost of fuel, hits them continually and rises geometrically, while any kind of revenue enhancement or profit, at best, will rise or increase arithmetically.
Right. You know, I wish we had better information to share. And just to kind of put a sidebar on that, and you and I have talked about this on the morning program numerous times, though, and that is the unfunded mandates and what looms large. We have a lot of criticism being aimed at the administration nationally with the president about the increase of debt and obligation and et cetera. What's happening here with our state, and what's the net effect of having such a burgeoning debt just sitting on top of us?
Well, you have two separate things. You have the actual amount of debt between annual expenditures, and then you have the unfunded liabilities, and that's what you were alluding to. When you talk about the employees' retirement system, and you talk about the employees' health system. Clearly, we have been too generous, overly generous with our benefits and state expenditures over the years. And many of us called years and years ago for reforms and to change the path for at least new employees. You know, I'm a very strong critic of government and government spending, but the one thing I've always said was, if you make a promise to somebody and they rely on that promise, then you've got to keep your word. That's the very first thing government should do. But we go back to Ben Cayetano in the year 2000, 2001, when he tried to change the collective bargaining statutes of the state. He wanted to change civil service reform. and he's responsible for trying to get the health care costs under control because he had received a report from Marion Higa, the legislative auditor, that said, unchecked, in 10 years, we'd be paying more than $1 billion a year. Well, guess what? We didn't do anything for 12 years, and now we've got an unfunded liability of $8 or $9 billion in health care. But in retirement, depending on who looks at the figures, that unfunded liability is up to $20 or $25 billion, and we are ranked worst state in the union by national rating organizations that look at pension plans. It is a problem in other states, but I think a lot of my colleagues, unfortunately, are in denial about how serious it is and what the impact is going to be on your children and mine.
Unbelievable amount. Senator Sam Slom, our guest for this edition of 5 Questions here on News Radio 830 KHVH and, of course, on the homepage of HawaiiReporter.com. I want to go to the third question. We had a headline here, Sam, earlier in the week, and that stated that Hawaii's electricity cost is the highest in the nation. And as a matter of fact, that we're paying 25.1 cents per kilowatt hour, while the national average is...
On average.
It's
a lot higher for some people and on the neighbor islands.
Good point. And the national average is 9.83 cents per kilowatt hour. There was a breakdown about our dependency on petroleum and the utilization and all of that, which is different than the mainland, but nonetheless coming out of the pocket of the consumer. What, as we as consumers, can look to for either a very specific explanation or, more importantly, relief from this huge cost?
Well, a couple things. I heard you list the comparisons between mainland and Hawaii back in, I guess it was 2000 and then 2010, which were, of course, startling. And you always do a good job in alerting the public. The first thing is the public really doesn't know or doesn't understand what's happening. I tell people, everybody, look at your bills every month, whether you're talking about your cell phone bill or you're talking about your electric bill or your water bill or anything else. Make sure, first of all, you understand where the charges are coming from. Secondly, that they're accurate. You and I come from a generation where we were taught at home, turn off the lights, turn off the water, don't waste, recycle, and all that. We didn't have to have laws to do that. Our parents told us how to do that. Well, now the problem is you can tell people, turn off the lights, unplug the computer, don't watch TV. Your actual usage goes down, but your costs will continue to escalate. And it's really frustrating because you don't have control. And you look at your bill, and you see all these non-electricity costs and charges. And I've got to tell you, I've got a bill in this year. I introduced it a couple of years ago, but it's been refined to deregulate our monopoly electric distributor. A number of states have done that. It's not a panacea, but it is an option and alternative. As long as this electric distributor continues, first of all, its bottom line will go up, your bottom line will go down. You'll have less and less control because I know that you share my disgust when you're watching those commercials that Hawaiian Electric is doing on TV, setting us up for yet another 50% increase in rates. We talk about clean energy. We talk about alternatives. We have some alternatives that are never even on the table. Really, natural gas is not seriously talked about. Coal is never talked about. And, oh, my gosh, if you were to mention nuclear energy, no, you can't talk about that. And we certainly don't support, drilling in America or even a pipeline from Canada. So we're told all these things we can't do, and we're forced into a situation where everybody's going to have a wind turbine on their house and photovoltaic, and the government tells us it really isn't going to cost us anything because we have these tax credits and we have this and we have that. And you and I know there's no such thing as a free lunch or a free turbine or even free electricity from the sun. All of these things have costs, and the interesting thing is Hawaiian Electric gets a cut out of everything. One of the big issues at the legislature this year is whether or not we turn Lanai and Molokai into wind farms to service Oahu. And the people that live there don't want that to happen. The cost of the cable to transmit that energy here would be $1 to $2 billion. That's a hefty price. Again, Hawaiian Electric gets costs and they get charges out of all of this. So really we have to take a look at the electric distribution. You can say all you want that you don't like fossil fuels, you don't want this, you don't want that. But in the interim, in the transition period between now and hopefully being less dependent on oil and petroleum products, we've got to find a way to save our consumers money, because those figures that you gave are only going to go higher.
Unbelievable. Yeah, and that's very true. Yeah, almost an inevitability.
Yeah.
Kind of on a sidebar for question number 4, Sam, you say a daily prayer in the Senate chamber.
Yes, I do.
Yes,
God bless
you do.
Rick.
And despite the leadership of the Senate for formally ending the practice
last year,
why do you continue?
Because I think it's important. I think that if there ever was a time that decision makers, and particularly in government, need the counsel of a higher power, it's now. I mean, we know we're all very smart in the Senate and the House. I mean, gee, we couldn't be any smarter because we pass really good laws and then we exempt ourselves from the laws. Any help that we can get, citizen input, business input, but certainly spiritual input. My feeling is that what has happened to our nation and to our state year by year, gradually over the last 30, 40, 50 years, is that basically we've lost our moral compass. And everybody is living in the now. We talk about feelings. We talk about compassion. You can have compassion. You can have feelings, but you also have to have a touch of reality. And at the same time, I think we have to be big enough to know that we're not that smart and we don't have all the answers. And just the idea of having prayer, which is perfectly legal, by the way, we've substantiated that with past Supreme Court cases, to have a few individuals take it upon themselves to disrupt the city council, get them to back away, disrupt the state senate, get them to back away from prayer, to go down to the Red Mass outside the Catholic Church, try to disrupt that. Everybody should be free to worship or not worship as they please. We always had a tradition in both the House and the Senate. We would have a daily prayer, and sometimes it was a poem, sometimes it was a song, sometimes it was silent, and no one was forced to be there. And in fact, a number of my colleagues over the years, they particularly waited until the prayer was over before they entered the Senate floor. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But for a couple of individuals to deny the vast majority of people that do believe in a deity and do think that that expression that we're not as smart or as great as we think we are, that they think that that's important, I will continue the tradition.
And there you have it. Thank you very much for that, Sam, and thank you for all the effort there, without a doubt.
Absolutely.
Final question, and maybe
Sure.
I'm going to broach it more of a statement, and maybe you can tell me if we're on the right track or the wrong track.
Okay.
Recent bond float of $1.3 billion.
Yes.
That is being talked about to help replenish the rainy day fund and
Yes.
other funds.
Right.
Then we have a proclivity in our legislature to raid special funds.
Absolutely. As you know, I voted against the creation of every one of them since 1997 for that very reason.
Exactly. But then if we do raid that special fund, those monies go to the general fund.
Yes.
So it's my understanding that that particular bond float is prevented from being put directly into the general fund.
That's correct.
However, if we follow that track, in essence, what we're doing is laundering money that is supposed to be for one purpose and then is used for another.
That is also correct. You and I both have a high regard and respect for Calbert Young, who's the state budget director. I think he's the finest cabinet official that we have today. And he tells it like it is. We can congratulate him on having the largest bond sale in Hawaii's history at the lowest rate in Hawaii's history. And that's terrific. But wait a minute. $1.3 billion, it's still debt. Any way you slice it, any way you dress it up, it's still debt, number one. The Rainy Day Fund and the Hurricane Relief Fund, both of which were heavily rated along with others, like the Highway Fund. The Rainy Day Fund last year, before it was rated, had approximately $60 million in it. It now currently has $6 million. I recently attended a joint hearing of the Human Services and Health Committees, and you had every social welfare grantee and subsidized group in town coming in. And they were saying basically, don't put that money back in the Rainy Day Fund. Give it to us. it's raining. And in fact, you have a number of my colleagues saying the same thing. We don't want you to put the money back. We want to distribute it. Well, here's a couple of problems with that. If you have a substantial rainy day fund, which should be for the most dark of emergencies, that helps give us a good bond rating and shows financial stability. Number two, if you take the money out and you just distribute it to those organizations that are clamoring for it now, once it's gone, it's gone. There's no replenishment and there's no reinvestment or anything else, and these organizations will still be back next year asking for more money. We have a lot of people that are in denial, particularly in government, and a lot of other people that think, okay, we had to have cuts and changes in our policies, but boy, just as soon as the state taxes the rich and taxes other people more, we'll have more money and we'll go just the way we were before. Not going to happen. The money is not going to be there, and organizations and the government have to learn they're going to have to do things differently because we all have our needs and our wants. And if you listen to all the people that come here to the government for handouts, every one of them is the number one priority. They haven't learned how to do things and do things differently, but they will, because it will be dictated by the limited financial resources. And that may turn out to be a good thing because we've got to change direction, and government cannot take more from the people than the people's ability to earn and spend for themselves.
We've spent 5 questions with Senator Sam Slom. He's
It's
a
gone
Senate
so
Minority
fast, Rick.
Leader.
So
It
fast.
is. I mean, you blink an eye, and everything's just flowing by. And I think a lot of it is just that we just appreciate you so very much. And I hope people walk away understanding that there is another side to every story that comes out.
Well, that's very kind of you. And my final word is, we've talked about a lot of negative things and a lot of challenges. I never give up on the people, and the people still have the ability to make changes here, to get involved with their government, their legislature. They can always call my office. My staff is very helpful to tell them where the hearings are, what they have to do for testimony. Don't give up, because we can make a difference. I think we're at a tipping point nationally and locally, but I'm ever the optimist, and I know that we've got the individual creativity and the resources to turn this around because Hawaii is worth it.
Amen. On all counts. Senator Sammy, thank you so very much.
Aloha, Rick. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Aloha. Take care now. Bye now.